Welcome to another episode of the Minnesota Meatloaf podcast. How's it going, Matt?
Good. How are you today, Aaron?
I'm doing well. Before we get going, I do have an apology. I
Oh,
want
really?
to make an apology to the whole world and everybody that's been listening to this podcast, and especially you.
Really?
And I after the last podcast, I've been thinking about things and I did some research and I discovered that I've been wrong this whole entire time about something. And I thought about it and I looked up and looked at several different websites and confirmed it a few different times. And I just want to say I'm sorry. And what I'm sorry about is you've been right this whole time that the two times we saw White
I
Zombie,
knew I knew it.
it was at the Target Center.
and
We
and
have
the
never seen him at Roy Wilkins Auditorium. The only concert I've ever been there was Nirvana. The
nice.
other concerts have been at the Target Center. That I don't know why I was thinking that it was at the Roy Wilkins Auditorium,
hmm
but I did. I looked up concert dates and I looked up White Zombie and they had all the concert dates back to when we would have saw them, and it was at the Target Center.
That's awesome. I
So
I
I am
was
sorry.
That's I appreciate the apology. I'm sorry. She's sorry. We're sorry. So
Yep.
sorry. I appreciate the apology, and I was pretty sure I was right because I honestly don't think I've ever been to the Roy Wilkins
Yeah,
Auditorium in my entire life.
I don't
And
know why I had that in my
so you're like,
brain
no,
that
it was at Roy Wilkins, and I'm like, okay, you seem like you're really confident about that, but I, honest to God, don't think I've ever been to Roy Wilkins in my entire life. But
no. And yeah, I've only been there once, I guess. And I don't know why. It's just
it's just
something, I don't
Nirvana was
know.
so awesome that you couldn't believe it was only one show. You had to make it two
Yeah.
shows.
But if you think about it, it's a smaller auditorium, the Roy
hmm
Wilkins, and
hmm
White Zombie Pantera was huge,
Yeah,
and
and White Zombie just by itself, you wouldn't think with Reverend Horton Heat and the Melvins, you wouldn't think would be that big,
no.
but
And
but
that's
it
why I
was.
was
It was at the
thinking,
Target
but it
Center.
was it was huge, yeah.
That's the
So,
power of Beavis and Butthead.
yep. So, yep, I've
Because
been wrong this whole time.
well, it takes a big person to admit it. So thank you.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm not arguing anymore. I'm just gonna go along with it. It's like, sure, it was at Roy Wilkins. Whatever you
Yep.
say.
After the concert one that we did, I was like, I'm gonna look it up. I've gotta know for sure. And yeah, you can look up any concert that has, from the past, and they'll tell you where it was and the date. And so
That's awesome.
yeah. So
Well, that's good to know.
so what have you been playing, watching?
I have been playing. I did everything there is to do on Warhammer 40,000 Power Wash Simulator. Got all the trophies. Got 100% completed. So then I was like, regular Power Wash just didn't seem as exciting after that. I've
Yeah.
been mainly watching shows, and I've been mainly watching Iron Fist on Disney. I finished
Yeah.
Luke Cage. I really liked it, and then started Iron Fist. And every one of these Marvel shows that used to be on um, Netflix, the Daredevil,
Yep.
Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage. I go on the exact same journey every single time where I'm like, before I start watching it, I'm like, I'm not going to like this show. This show's going to be dumb.
Mhm.
I don't care about this character. I don't like this show. It's going to be stupid. And then I watch the first episode and I'm like, meh, that was okay, I guess. I don't know. And then I watched the second one and I'm like, oh, that was kind of good. And then I watched and usually by about episode 3 or 4, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best show ever. I absolutely love this show. And then I'm
Yeah.
totally into it. And the same thing happened with Iron Fist. The first couple episodes, I was like, well, this is my least favorite out of all the Marvel shows. And now I'm on like episode 10 and I'm totally sold and I'm into it 100%. So,
Yeah, I remember seeing, previews for it, but I've never actually watched it.
hmm it's a lot of
So
fighting, a lot of
is
kung
it?
fu. Yep.
Ooh,
Yep.
cool.
Yep. So that's what I've been doing mainly.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Hogwarts Legacy, the Harry Potter game, and I'm almost done with that. And then I discovered a new game called The Messenger. It's kind of like a 8-bit Ninja Gaiden type game, and
Oh, cool.
um, yeah, and you like I don't know. I'm thinking it's gonna be kind of like what do you call it? Oh, Metroidvania or
Oh,
whatever,
sure. Mhm.
where you get power-ups and then you can go back and access different areas. And that's kind of how it's seeming because you get all these different like power-ups and stuff. But it's really fun, but the graphics are 8-bit, so and you're a ninja, and it's been fun. I've been playing that a lot. So
Cool.
yeah. And then I watched a documentary the other night. It was called Wonka, the Scandal That Rocked Britain. Have you heard
Oh,
about that?
I've heard about it. I that is one of the greatest things I've ever heard in recent memory.
Oh my
Everything
gosh.
about it is awesome.
Yeah, it's like this guy was going to put on this Willy Wonka, event, and he used AI to create all the ads and just said it was going to be spectacular. And these
Hmm.
people paid like, I don't know what the money what the money conversion is, but it was like 35 pounds a ticket.
I think it ended up being like 40 to $45 American.
Okay, and people
Yeah.
traveled all over to go to this event because it was going to be amazing. And when
Uh-huh.
they got there, it was just like an empty giant warehouse with like these stupid props, and it just and there was supposed to be all this candy and all this stuff, and there was like uh little glasses of lemonade, and everybody got like one jelly bean, and so everybody like started rioting, and then they had to like shut it down, or the guy shut it down, and the police were called. And then this documentary kind of like showed all the video and had interviews with like people that went there, and some of the cast members, and then they actually had the guy on there that put it on,
Uh-huh.
and he never really he's like, I'm going to explain what happened, and the only thing he said was he was supposed to have like more like video equipment and stuff, and it never showed up, and so that's
Yeah,
all he said.
like that was gonna fix everything.
Yeah, and that was his only like excuse. And so all these people that paid all this money, they were supposed to be refunded and they weren't refunded, but it was a pretty neat documentary.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but so
Well, speaking of games that we're playing, that kind of gets to today's topic.
yeah.
And today we wanted to talk about, oh, go ahead, shoot.
No, okay. You want me to introduce it?
Yeah, go
Okay.
far.
Yeah, today our top three is our one of my favorite Nintendo systems ever is the Super Nintendo. And I think, is it
Yeah.
one of yours too, Matt?
I think it might be my actual favorite. I think
Yeah.
that like after that, 64 was awesome, was good, but not as good as Super
Mhm.
Nintendo. GameCube is awesome, but I still
Yeah.
think I like Super Nintendo just a little better.
I think so too. And our top three is our top three favorite Super Nintendo games.
Yep. And with a special caveat, top three Super Nintendo games that aren't Mario or Zelda.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
otherwise it would be like Super Mario World, Super Mario RPG, Super Mario Zelda, um,
Yep.
Link to the Past,
Mario Kart.
Mario
Yeah.
Kart. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So with the exclusion of Mario and Zelda, our top three Super Nintendo games. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. My number three is the game ActRaiser. Do you remember that, Matt?
Oh yeah, I love that game.
And I don't even remember how I heard about it. I don't know if it was ever Nintendo Power, but
I think it was like one of the like almost like a launch game for Super Nintendo, and they might have
okay.
talked about it in Nintendo Power like as part of the just overall Super Nintendo's coming out.
Yeah.
There's going to be all these crazy games like ActRaiser, and it's like what the hell's that? Raise and
Yeah.
act?
Yeah, so I got the Super Nintendo the Christmas that it came out, because I think it came out in like August, September, and I got it that December. And we were shopping in Duluth, and we went to KB Toy Store, and I saw it. They had
Mhm.
ActRaiser. I saw Christmas money, and I was like, I got to get ActRaiser. That game looks awesome. And the weird thing about the copy, it was like used.
Really?
It was like the only one they had, but it was like, yeah, used. It was opened, and I was like, I bought it, and but yeah, that was the strange thing.
That
It's
was
like
at KV Toy Store.
KB Toy Store, but this was like after the years of Nintendo. A member of playing a game and not liking it, and then you could return it with the Nintendo games and get a different
Yeah.
one. But this was years later when they figured things out. But anyways, I got it, and it was amazing because it was like RPG. You had like an RPG element where you had to build a town, and then you had to use the townspeople to seal like these demon gates, and then
Yep.
you could like destroy their buildings, and then they would make better buildings, and then you can like um upgrade their stats, and then they build different things. And then once the town got to a certain point and you destroyed all the demon seals, Um, then it went to like 2D, and you
Hmm.
could do it was like a 2D platformer, and then you had to battle all this stuff, and then there was like a really cool end boss at every
Yeah,
area. And there was like all these different lands that you could do. There's like a desert and an ice,
there was like an
and then you
ice
got
dragon
magic.
for a boss, right?
What's that?
Like the boss on the ice world was like an ice dragon, right?
Yeah,
I
yep.
remember seeing
And
pictures of that.
yeah, and I think there was actually even a couple bosses per level or per
Mm,
area, because I think you started out fighting a boss, and then you went to the more overhead world where you're kind of like a god almost, and
hmm.
you could destroy these people's villages and make it rain and
Yeah,
grow crops and stuff. And it was just a really fun mix, and I played that game like all the time.
awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, I remember. I think Luke Fiddler might have had it of all people because I
Yeah.
remember playing it and you like with the almost like a Sim City kind of thing with the
Yeah, that's
buildings
what,
instead.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was like more like a 2D fight or side scroller with
Yep.
with the big dude with the sword and the chopping and the slicing.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, that was a fun game.
That's a good pick.
And then I remember there was like a secret, like later on in Nintendo Power, they had like a code where you could play it and it was like really hard. And it was
Mm.
just like playing the 2D levels.
Oh, okay.
And I could get almost to the end of it, but I could never get to the end, beat it on that mode. But
Uh-huh.
yep.
Cool.
Hmm.
My number three is another game that I don't think was very talked about in Nintendo Power. I think there was one paragraph one time, and that's what got me excited about it. But it's a game I called it Evo. Some people might call it Evo, but I think I looked it up and it's actually I think it's EVO. The Quest for Eden is what it's called.
Okay. Yep. I remember that.
And I think there was like just a one page like coming soon in Nintendo Power, and based on that, I was super excited and asked for it for Christmas. And I don't know where my mom found it, but she found it. But basically, it's a game about evolution, and you start off as a little fish, and you can eat smaller fish, and there's bigger fish that can attack you. And then
Mhm.
as you eat the littler fish, you get experience points, and then you can spend those on like upgrades, like a different tail, so you can swim faster, or better scales so you can take more damage, or better jaws so you can bite
Yeah.
harder and attack bigger fish. And then you just gradually like evolve into a more deadly, better. Pretty soon the things that were killing you, you're feeding on them, and then there's other bigger things that are killing you.
Yeah.
And then like the storyline of the game is that there's these weird crystal like alien crystals that are like affecting evolution. So then at the end of every level there was a boss that was like some kind of mutant creature that was mutated by one
Okay.
of these crystals. And then when you'd kill it, then you'd get the crystal and you would go to the next thing. So from the fish you'd go to like a amphibian or whatever, and then you
Sure.
eventually get to be like a reptile. And then you can get into like a dinosaur, like you could make yourself like a T-Rex, or you could give yourself horns, you could be four-legged or two-legged. And then at one point there's a part where it's kind of like a hidden thing, but you can go up this huge mountain, and then if you jump off, you evolve wings, and then you can get like birds and pterodactyls.
Hmm.
And then eventually you get to mammals, and then there was like a certain combination of if you picked certain things, it would give you an option that just said evolved further, and if you click that, then you would turn into a person. But actually, it
Okay.
was like a caveman, and then you could like evolve the caveman a couple times. But in the terms of gameplay, the person kind of sucked, was kind of weak compared to a big monster mammal thing that you could make. So,
Yeah.
but that was a really fun game. The end to end boss was really hard until I figured out that there was horns you could get, and when
Okay.
they'd break off, you could grow them back and it would refill your health. So you just had to store up a ton of experience, and then every time you got close to zero health, just regrow your horns, and then
Oh.
you'd gain all your health back. And that's how I finally
Mhm.
passed it.
Awesome.
So EVO,
I remember
obscure
that
Super
game.
Nintendo game.
I've never played it.
Yeah,
That was cool.
yeah.
Um, my number two is Street Fighter 2, for Super Nintendo.
Hmm.
And when I first seen Street Fighter 2, it was in Outer Limits Arcade, and it was before Mortal Kombat, and I was like
Hmm.
hooked. And I
Hmm.
always played Street Fighter. And I remember hearing about it, seeing a Nintendo Power that was coming out for the Super Nintendo. And and it wasn't supposed to come out. I can't remember when it was supposed to come out in the summer sometime. I don't know the exact date. And we were gonna go to Florida, and it was raining, and we were in the cities, and we usually would stay at a hotel when we'd fly out to Florida, and then you could park your
Mhm.
car at the hotel, for the whole time you were gone, and then we'd take a shuttle to the airport and that. And so we were driving the hotel, and we were going by Toys R Us, by the
Mhm.
Mall of America, and there was a huge banner that said, "We have Street Fighter 2." And I was like, "Oh my God, we gotta stop. We gotta stop.
Yeah.
Go back." And Dad's like, "No," because it was rush hour and raining. He's like, "No,
Right.
we're not gonna stop."
We got a
And
plane to catch.
yeah, well, this was the day before we
Oh,
flew,
okay.
the day before we flew out. And so we get to the hotel, and I made my mom call Toys R Us, and she got the phone book out and called it, and they had it, to make sure that they had it, and they're like, "Yep." So then we drove back, and we went and we bought it. But the thing with buying it is I had to drag that thing all through Florida. And so I must have read that instruction booklet like a million times. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
Because it was like so exciting, but I couldn't play it.
Just holding on to the game and looking at it, just imagining what it'd be like to play.
Yep. And then I'd go play it in the arcade, at Disney World or Busch Gardens or whatever. But
That's
but the thing,
awesome.
Super Nintendo is like the graphics were so good, I thought. They were
Mhm.
just like the arcades.
Yep. That's actually
And
I'm gonna talk about that in my number 2 also.
okay. Because yeah, like the graphics for Street Fighter 2 were dead on to the arcades. I don't think there was much difference.
Exactly.
I I played that, for the Super Nintendo all the time.
Yep.
And yeah,
I
it's
think
such a
that was
great
I
game.
think that was one of the first times when I saw that game on Super Nintendo where it was like, this is exactly what the arcade looks like. It's the
Yeah.
first time a home game looked exactly like the arcade. Maybe
Yep.
just a teeny bit, like some insignificant differences, but
Yeah.
compare. I mean, we used to compare like Atari 2600
Oh,
Pac-Man
yeah.
to Pac-Man, or you'd get home
Exactly.
versions of games that were just like crappy. Even like
Yep.
Burger Time on the NES looks like crap compared to arcade
Yeah.
Burger Time. So
I
to have
know.
something that looked just as good as the arcade was just like that was like a mind. I was gonna say it's game changer, but that's kind of stupid. But
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing. And yeah, I love that game. And that was probably one of the most played games that I had was Street Fighter 2 until later, other ones came out. So but yeah, my number two is Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, going right along with that, right hand in hand. My number 2 is Mortal Kombat 2.
Yep.
Mortal Kombat 1 on the Super Nintendo is awesome, but
Yep.
there's the one glaring problem with it is that Nintendo couldn't quite bring themselves to fully embrace the blood and gore, and so they
Yep.
made the blood into sort of weird flesh-colored sweat, and they changed some of the fatalities to make them less gruesome.
More
Um,
stupid in my
right,
opinion.
exactly, exactly. I think in everyone's opinion.
Yeah.
And so Mortal Kombat 1, most people prefer it on the Sega Genesis just because there was the blood code and you could
Yep.
make it like the arcade version. Now, don't get me wrong, I still played an absolute shit ton of Mortal Kombat 1 on
Oh yeah.
Super Nintendo, but when Mortal Kombat 2 came out, they were over it and they made it full blood, full same fatality, same everything as the arcade. And just like what you were saying with Street Fighter, it was like this looks exactly like the arcade.
Oh yeah.
We would go to Outer Limits and play Mortal Kombat 2, and then we'd come home and play Mortal Kombat 2.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was like knowing all, and it was so nice to have it at home because then you could like
Mm,
practice the fatalities and practice
yeah.
all the moves, and then you'd go to the arcade and then you could show off and be a big shot. Like, look at I know how
Yep.
to do reptiles fatality, blah, you know.
And it was exactly the inputs and everything, and all the secrets and hidden things were exactly like the arcade. I mean, it was
Yep,
a mirrored game. It
yep. It was
was.
like a direct port, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like the hidden, Kintaro fatality was on there. I mean, like
Yep.
everything, all the secret fights and
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly. And so that was another one we just played absolute ton of at our
Yep.
house was Mortal Kombat 2. So
Yep.
that's my number 2 pick.
Yeah, I played that one a lot too. And I remember, you remember the store that software, etc.
Yep.
It was in the at the mall at Crossroads Mall, and
Hmm.
I pre-ordered it from there, and I got like a ton of stuff with it. I got like posters and pins and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, remember the game Maximum Carnage,
Yes.
Spider-Man Venom
Yep.
game? I
Yep.
pre-ordered that from there, and I got posters, and then I had the cassette tape of Green
Oh,
Jelly that was
yeah.
Carnage rules. We would drive around in my car listening to that
Yep.
nonstop.
Yeah. I missed all the free promos with the games.
Yeah.
I guess they still do it with like GameStop does it, but I mean, it's just I don't know. It doesn't seem it's way too expensive. I mean, yeah, you're paying for what you're getting, whereas back then you really didn't. It was just
Back
like,
then, you
oh,
just paid for a game and got a bunch
yeah,
of free crap because you pre-ordered it.
yep,
Now it's like you
exactly.
have to pre-order the collector's edition to get a free Batarang or whatever.
Yeah, I know. And then it looks really cool, but then there's 5 million of them, so it's not worth anything.
Yep, exactly.
And okay, so my number one, um, I absolutely hate sports games.
Hmm.
I don't like them. I don't know. I'm not good at them. And there's only been like a couple sports games in my gaming history that I've really enjoyed. And my number one though for Super Nintendo is NBA Jam. And I never owned it. That's the crazy thing. I never owned it, but our friends, the S's owned it. And I was over there all the time, and that's all we did was we played NBA Jam. And if you've never played it, it's a basketball game, and it's a 2-on-2, and and it had like pretty much every NBA team, and you would just I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like a
It's basketball, but it's very arcade style. So it's very
yeah,
fast paced. It's very
yep,
kind of button mashery almost. There's not a
yeah,
whole lot of technical. It's like if you're looking for detailed statistics and all that. No,
yeah.
this is just more like a BS fun,
Just
silly
pass and
basketball
shoot
game.
pretty much,
Yep, exactly.
and then everybody had like really cool dunks, and then there's like an awesome announcer that would be like boom shakalaka and
Yeah.
he's on fire. And then I remember if you get like, you know, if you'd make three baskets in a row before the other person, then the ball would be on fire and the net would burn, and then you could break the backboard and
Yeah.
but then there was codes that we didn't know right away, but eventually, like Nintendo Power and other gaming magazines put them in, where you could put these codes in and then be like different characters like Al Gore and Bill Clinton and
Yeah.
all these other crazy people.
The one that I remember I was playing as was called Air Dog, and it was like a little like wienery looking kid,
Yeah.
but he could like slam dunk like his dunk stat was all maxed out.
Oh,
So you'd be
yeah.
like breaking the billboards and like jumping 100 feet in the air and swinging your arm all around
Yeah.
windmill style. And
Yeah. But what made it fun was anybody could play it. You could just pick it up and play. And I actually
Mhm.
was pretty decent at it and could win. And whereas
Mhm.
you give me a NBA game now or NBA 2K or something, that's like I couldn't even score 1 point. It's just
Yeah.
yeah,
Couldn't even make it down the court.
nope. But yeah, my number one is NBA Jam it's kind of a strange pick for me, but no, I because I played it so much.
Right. My number one is a game called Shadowrun.
Yep.
Um, I might have mentioned it before, but it's a RPG. It's like a futuristic and it's a sci-fi fantasy. Basically, it's at some point in the future, there's some sort of event that re-releases magic into the world. And so there's like elves and dragons and trolls and dwarfs and spells, but at the same time, there's like cyber hacking and cyborgs and like technology and that kind of stuff. And it's in kind of like a rundown city, and it's just a really unique game. It's got this weird sort of
Mhm.
like overhead view that's kind of 3D but kind of not because it's at a weird perspective. And you run your little guy around. He has amnesia to start with, and so you kind of learn along with the character of what's all going on. And there's just a lot of really bizarre. There's like a dog ghost at one point that you need to go
Mhm.
find, and it's like there's just really one of the major enemies towards the end is like the jester, and it's just like a floating jester head, like it's like a computer AI or something. And it's just a really, it's hard to describe, but it's a really
Yeah.
interesting RPG game where you
Yep.
level up and you gain spells and you gain hacking skills. There's like you can hack into computers, and then there's a weird little mini game where it's kind of almost like Minesweeper to simulate the hacking.
Yep.
And then there's when you talk to people, there's like key words. Like someone will say like, you need to talk to the dog, and then the word dog will be lit up like green or highlighted. And then later on when you talk to other people, you can select it'll be like, ask him a question, and then all the highlighted words you've come across will be available to ask. So you can like ask about dog, and then the person will be
Hmm.
like, I don't know anything about a dog. Or else they'll be
Hmm.
like, oh, you need to talk to the ghost dog, he lives down by the dock. And just as an
Yeah,
example. So
cool.
towards the end you have like 40 keywords, and you end up asking everyone everything, and they're like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Yes, that I know about, go here. I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't. But it was a really fun, unique game, and
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that game a lot. I think I bought it at Funko Land, or maybe Game. I don't know if it switched to GameStop by then, but back in the
yeah.
Funko days.
Probably Funko Land back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my
Yeah, I
number one
never.
pick.
Awesome. Yeah, I've never played that, but I remember, seeing you guys watching you play it, going over to your house and stuff. But yeah, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many awesome games for the Super Nintendo. It's
Oh
just,
yeah. Like Super
especially,
Castlevania, I wanted
yep.
to mention Super Castlevania just because that music on the first level is some of the greatest video game music
Oh
ever
yeah,
composed.
yep.
And it's such a
Like,
great update of the NES Castlevania. The Super Contra, or Contra 3, I think it is. Whatever. The
yeah,
Super Nintendo Contra is really good too.
yeah, yeah. Another one that sold me on the Super Nintendo was Final Fight. That was like
Oh
first
yeah.
game I got. I mean, that is another one that's exactly like the arcade, the graphics.
Yep.
They had to change a few things, like they got rid of the two-player and then the guy, the third character. But I mean, still, you play as Cody and Hagar, and it's just awesome.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, Super Nintendo still is one of my favorite systems.
It
I
really is.
love it.
It's one of the best. They
Yep,
really outdid themselves on that one.
yep, they sure did. So, but yeah, I think we're running out of time,
Yep.
and
So I guess this wraps up another episode of the Minnesota Meatloaf podcast.
yeah, yep,
Wow.
there it is.
There it is. So please like, share, subscribe, follow,
Yeah,
comment, question,
yep,
query, do
yep,
whatever you want.
yep. We're here for you.
Yeah, get involved any which way that you want.
Yep. All right.
You can
Thanks for
swing from the
listening.
fence. Yep, thanks for listening. Bye.